Hi, personal finance students. Today we are in lesson 36. There's a link here, and I want you to take notes while you watch this video. And then there is a worksheet that I want you to do. If you know how to do this worksheet, you'll get an easy 10 points on the final test, which will happen next week. So if you don't know how to do it, the best that you can do on the final test is a B. So I want you to be able to know how to do this. If you are confused on it or have questions after I explain it, then let me know and I can go through it further with you. Also for attendance today, you can do one of these three options. You can either send me an email with a picture of your notes that you took, you can share your completed take-home pay worksheet with me, or you can send me an email with questions that you have about taxes. So any of those three would work. You don't have to do all three, just pick one of the three. So let's jump right into the notes. First question here, and you can pause these videos and get your notes down and things like that, but why do we have taxes? In order for the federal, state, and local governments to provide services. So I've got pictures of some things that we like pay taxes for, and these are like services that we get, right? So we send money in the form of tax dollars to different branches of the government, right? We've got state government, which is in St. Paul, all right? We've got local governments. We've got a mayor, and we've got a city council, and we've got federal governments. We've got a president. We've got a Supreme Court, and we have a House of Representatives and a Senate. So then we elect those people to decide what to do with those tax dollars. Another thing that we get from different tax dollars, so things that we get, our military is funded by federal tax income, all right, federal tax dollars, okay? Our police officers are funded by state and local tax dollars. Our school districts are funded by property taxes and state taxes as well come into play. And then lastly, we've got our roads and bridges. You may not have thought about this before, but some are local, some are state roads, and some are federal or interstate or US highways, right? And so they would be based off of wherever they are and whatever type of road they are. That's the tax that they're coming from. I'm going to show you the tax receipts. That way you can see. This is from 2014. Unfortunately, the White House hasn't done this in a while, but it gives you an idea of where tax dollars go. And so this was 5 years ago of your federal income tax dollars and where it's going. And so in 2014, and this will likely be very similar today, the top two are healthcare and national defense. And then below that, we've got all of these things. All right. And so of the many dollars that come in for federal income taxes, healthcare and national defense, like our military, right, are the big ones that get funded here. If you expand healthcare, it's kind of neat. You can see the different things, different programs that are funded through that. So, keep moving on here. Here's the different types of tax I want you to be aware of. Federal income gets paid to the federal government, and we elect people like Representative Colin Peterson, Senators Tina Smith and Amy Klobuchar to decide what to do with our federal income. Our state income gets paid to the state government, and it gets sent to St. Paul, and we elect people like Senator Kent Eakin, and we elect people like Governor Tim Walz to kind of, decide what to do with the state income tax. Sales tax is charged on most items in Minnesota, except for there's two things, and it's going to be a question on the test, so make sure that you know what they are. They are clothing. So anything that you wear, all right, anything that's clothing, considered something that you would wear, you know, shirts, garments, any clothing, all right. And then the other item is what's called essential food items. And so anything basically without added sugar is not taxed. So like bottles of water, your typical like milk, lettuce, you know, produce, uh, any groceries that, like I said, do not have like the added sugar. The only foods that like get taxed are like your candy bars, stuff like that most of the time. So that's kind of how. So anyway, sales tax gets tacked on to the price of items in each city, and some cities have different rates. So like, for example, Minneapolis decided to raise sales tax in restaurants and hotels uh, in the downtown Minneapolis area in order to help pay for the Minnesota Vikings stadium. So that was part of one of their sales tax increases. Now, property tax is based off of value of the property. Depends on your state and local jurisdiction. So I will kind of show you something a little bit more about that. And then lastly, we've got capital gains tax. This is like if you make money on an investment and it's anything that appreciates in value, basically stocks, bonds, property. If you add on to your house and it goes up in value tremendously because of that, or you sell a house that you recently renovated that you've owned for less than 2 years, that'd be a capital gain. I'll walk you through take-home pay in a little bit here. I will also kind of walk you through the 1040 form. I want you to, it'd be easier to complete your 1040 form on your own when you're in high school, but after high school, there's just a couple of things that I think would make your life easier if you pay what's called a CPA, and CPA stands for Certified Public Accountant. So make sure you get that down in your notes as well. I promise you that that will be on the test. Certified Public Accountant. All right. So outside of that, we're going to move into the next PowerPoint here. It's understanding taxes and the fairness in taxes. So here's one of our presidents, Ronald Reagan, says the taxpayer, that's someone who works for the federal government, but doesn't have to take the civil service examination. So what he's saying there basically is that everyone who works in this country actually works for the federal government in a way. So if you think about it in that sense, then everyone kind of is in this together. Is kind of the idea there. So basically, we've got the balancing scale here of what some people deem fair and what some people do not deem fair, and that usually again tends to be what gets publicized as the main argument in politics and in government and things like that. And so anyway, we'll keep moving here. The ability to measure tax fairness in our country, we've decided that it is under the ability to pay and the benefits that you receive. So paying for those benefits that I talked about just a little bit ago, and your ability to pay, which is measured by how much money you make, right? So ability to pay, how much money you make, tax benefits received, and what they are tied to. So our federal income tax dollars go to pay for our military, all right? Gasoline taxes actually help pay for roads and bridges. And then lastly, our property taxes help pay for schools. All right, so I will ask you a test question asking you to kind of link these things, so make sure that you understand that those are linked. Regressive taxes means that everyone pays the same fixed amount, right? Everyone's going to pay that exact same fixed amount of tax. So like these are consumer goods. Anything that you can go and buy from the store, everyone pays that same fixed amount. User fees are on like public services. And so these would be like your state parks and national parks, stuff like that. Other things, user fees, they're like public services, would be considered like any license that you get through the DNR, whether that's a deer tag or a fishing license, stuff like that, falls under the category of what's called user fees. In the United States, we have what's called a progressive tax system. So the higher your income, the higher your taxes. And I'll show you those tax rates in a little bit here. Those are old. Wealth versus income. Wealth is basically things that you own, right? So money in your savings account, stocks, houses, vehicles, stuff like that. And then income is like the money that you're making, right? The money that you're making throughout the course of the year. So wealth and income, that's kind of how we differentiate that, all right? This is the stuff that you already have. This is what you're making throughout the course of a year. Now I'm going to explain a proportional tax. So that's how our housing or property taxes gets divided. And so, for example, if we said in Becker County, everyone pays 1% tax, all right? So everyone pays 1% property tax. Let's say this home is worth $200,000. This home is worth $800,000, and this home is worth $2 million. In that scenario, a $200,000 home would pay $2,000 in tax as the 1% tax rate. An $800,000 home would pay $8,000 in tax. And then a $2 million home would pay $20,000 in tax. That's how a proportional tax works. Everyone pays the same percent based off of what they own. So, and there are different tax rates based on different zonings in the county. Actually, it's not as simple as everyone pays the same percent. There's different, there's agriculture, there's recreational, there's land, there's homesteads, there's all sorts of different zonings. But just to give you an idea of how that works. We've got, let's see, I think that's all I need to go through here with you. FICA, Social Security, we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But let's see, that basically money goes to people that are unable to work. And we will move into the next thing here. Let's see. So 1040 form, I'll talk about later. I want to walk you through this as well in a little bit. But that's all your notes here. I'll be back in a little bit.